unicorns, giants, aliens, and even dragons. Yes, God created them all. Throughout the Bible, we come across mysterious and strange creatures, beings that challenge our understanding and showcase the incredible creativity of God. In today's video, we're diving into the top 8 strangest creatures that God ever created, each with a unique story and purpose in the grand design of the universe. Now let's dive deep into the biblical world of strange creatures that leave us in awe of God's mysterious creation. Before we dive into the strange and mysterious creatures God has created, let's first ground ourselves in an important truth from Scripture. Colossians chapter 1 verse 16 states,
"For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through him and for him."
This verse reminds us that everything was created by God, both the things we see and the things we can't. From the beauty of the natural world to the mysterious and often terrifying creatures we'll explore today, nothing is outside of his creative power or purpose. Whether these beings seem strange or unimaginable to us, they are part of the grand design that reflects God's infinite creativity and authority. So as we delve into these remarkable creations, remember, God's handiwork is present in all things, seen and unseen, and even the most bizarre creatures serve a divine purpose in his creation. At number 8 on our list, we step into the world of a creature that sparked countless debates and imaginations over the centuries, the unicorn. That's right, the Bible mentions unicorns, but before you start picturing the sparkling magical horses from fairy tales, let's take a deeper look. The Bible often refers to this mysterious creature using the Hebrew word rum, which has been translated as unicorn in older versions like the King James Bible. But many scholars now believe the ram wasn't a mystical one-horned horse, but something far more powerful. The wild ox, or possibly even an extinct aurochs. In the King James Version of Numbers, chapter 23, verse 22, it states,
"God brought them out of Egypt. He hath as it were the strength of a unicorn."
In this verse, the ram is described as possessing incredible strength, so much so that it became a symbol of raw, untamed power. Imagine a massive wild ox, larger than anything we see today, roaming the wilderness with its giant horns, untamable and fearsome. The ram was likely based on the aurochs, an ancient species of wild cattle that roamed the Middle East. These animals were known for their immense size and strength, and they were impossible to domesticate. Hence, the Bible's references to the ram as a symbol of strength and independence. Some even speculate that the ram could have been a rhinoceros based on its strong horned appearance. Whether it was a mighty ox or a rhinoceros, one thing is certain. The ram was a creature of legend, inspiring awe and fear in ancient times. Today, while the myth of the unicorn has evolved into a symbol of purity and magic, the biblical ram stands as a reminder of the true wild power and untamable nature of God's creation. Whether a wild ox or a one-horned beast, the ram represented God's strength and sovereignty, reminding humanity of their limits. Our number 7 place goes to Lilith. According to ancient Jewish tradition, Lilith was believed to be Adam's first wife. Yes, you heard that right, before Eve. Lilith was made from the same dust as Adam, which is key because she saw herself as his equal. But things didn't go quite so smoothly. According to the alphabet of Ben Sira, Lilith refused to submit to Adam and fled the Garden of Eden. As punishment, she was cursed and became a demon associated with death, especially the death of infants. She was also believed to seduce men in their sleep, leading to the belief that she preyed on both men and children, representing untamed sexuality and the dangers of female independence. Lilith's appearance is often striking and terrifying. In ancient mythology, Lilith was sometimes portrayed as having long flowing hair, representing her wild and untamed nature. She is also depicted as a winged woman, or a female figure with talons, symbolizing her demonic and dangerous aspects. Her body is often described as beautiful yet deadly, embodying both seduction and destruction. In the alphabet of Ben Sira, she is depicted as a seductress who preys on men and children, sometimes with snake-like features or a serpent's body, emphasizing her connection to demonic forces. In fact, the Bible states in Isaiah chapter 34, verse 14,
Wild cats shall meet with hyenas, goat demons shall call to each other. There too Lilith shall repose and find a place to rest.
This passage refers to a creature in the wilderness, symbolizing desolation and chaos. Some translations replace Lilith with night creatures or night monster, underscoring her association with nocturnal dangers and demons. Now, let's dive into number 6, Gadriel, a name you might not hear in your everyday Bible study, but trust me, this figure plays a crucial role in biblical and apocryphal stories. Gadriel is known to be one of the fallen angels, often associated with deception, sin, and the corruption of humanity. His story is most famously found in the Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish text that gives us extra insight into the actions of these rebellious angels. But before we dive into his story, let's talk about the name itself. The name Gadriel is believed to mean the wall of God, or the helper of God. In the Book of Enoch, Gadriel is portrayed as one of the leaders of the rebellious Watchers, those angels who descended from heaven and mingled with humans, giving rise to the Nephilim. But Gadriel's crime is even darker. According to the Book of Enoch, Gadriel is the one who led Eve astray in the Garden of Eden. That's right. While the Bible often focuses on the serpent as the deceiver, the Book of Enoch gives us the name of who exactly the serpent was. Gadriel is credited with leading Eve into temptation, introducing sin into the world. The Book of Enoch, chapter 69, states,
And the third was named Gadriel. He it is who showed the children of men all the blows of death, and he led astray Eve, and showed the shields and the coat of mail, and the sword for battle, and all the weapons of death to the children of men.
Like many fallen angels, Gadriel is often depicted with an imposing, fearsome appearance. In some interpretations, he retains the beauty and majesty of his angelic form, with massive wings and radiant features. But his beauty is deceptive. It masks his role as the bringer of sin and destruction. In modern art, Gadriel is sometimes shown as a shadowy, corrupted figure, with wings that are tarnished or broken, symbolizing his fall from grace. His appearance embodies the duality of angels, once beings of light, now consumed by darkness. So, while Gadriel might not be a household name, his influence in the Book of Enoch and his role as one of the key corruptors of mankind make him a creature worth remembering. From the deception of Eve to the forging of weapons, Gadriel's legacy is one of darkness, a stark reminder of how even divine beings can fall. And now for number 5 on our list of strange creatures God created. We're entering the realm of Seirim, better known as the goat demons. You might want to hold on to your seat for this one, because things are about to get a little wild. The Seirim are mysterious creatures mentioned in the Bible, goat demons lurking in the wilderness, associated with desolation and darkness. The name Seirim comes from the Hebrew word Sa'ir, meaning hairy or goat. And trust me, their appearance lives up to that name. These beings are often described as goat-like in form, with shaggy hair, horns, and a demonic presence. But before we get into how creepy these creatures are, let's talk about where they're mentioned in Scripture. Seirim make their first appearance in Leviticus chapter 17, verse 7, where it says,
They shall no longer sacrifice their sacrifices to the goat demons, Seirim, after whom they whore. This shall be a statute forever for them throughout their generations.
That's right. God explicitly commands the Israelites to stop sacrificing to these goat demons. Apparently, it was a common problem back then. People were offering sacrifices to the Seirim, hoping to win favor from these dark creatures of the wilderness. And these Seirim weren't just some harmless desert goats. They were demonic entities associated with chaos, pagan rituals, and the barren wilderness. In fact, we see them again in Isaiah chapter 13, verse 21, which says,
"But wild animals will lie down there, and their houses will be full of howling creatures. Their ostriches will dwell, and goat demons, Cherubim, will dance."
Yep, you heard that right. Goat demons dancing in the wilderness. It sounds almost like the worst party you could stumble into. So, what did people in the past believe about the Cherubim? In ancient Near Eastern cultures, goat-like creatures were often associated with pagan worship. These goat demons were believed to inhabit desolate places, living in the wastelands and deserts. People feared these creatures and would offer sacrifices to them, hoping to avoid their wrath or earn their favor. The Israelites, having lived among these neighboring pagan cultures, were tempted to join in on the practice. They began sacrificing to these goat demons, despite God's clear instructions against it. Now let's talk about how these terrifying creatures looked. The Cherubim are typically described as having the bodies of men, but the heads of goats. Think satyrs, but much more menacing. They're usually depicted with horns, wild hair, and glowing eyes, symbolizing their demonic nature. Some ancient depictions show them leading pagan rites, dancing wildly in the wilderness, and luring people into rituals that involved sacrifices. And, well, let's just say things went downhill from there. Today, the Cherubim are often seen as symbols of chaos and unclean practices that existed in the wilderness. Many scholars link them to the worship of false gods and the dangers of turning away from the God of Israel. Some even interpret these creatures as metaphorical, representing the spiritual wilderness people enter when they stray from faith. Modern depictions of the Cherubim often show them as terrifying goat-like beings with wild eyes and horns, symbols of primal fear and the dangers of the untamed wilderness. Some even compare them to modern representations of Satan or the demonic, creatures of chaos, rebellion, and fear. So whether you see them as literal demons or symbols of ancient chaos, the Cherubim remain some of the most unsettling creatures mentioned in Scripture. From forbidden rituals to their haunting presence in the wilderness, these goat demons have left a dark mark on ancient history. At number 4 on our list, we enter the nightmarish world of the locusts with scorpion tails. These creatures are straight out of the book of Revelation, beasts that sound like something from a horror movie. But they're very much a part of the biblical vision of the end times. These creatures are described in the book of Revelation, specifically in chapter 9, where the 5th trumpet is blown, unleashing these terrifying locusts from the abyss. Let's dive into the passage that gives us one of the most chilling descriptions in all of Scripture. Revelation 9:3 states,
"And out of the smoke, locusts came down on the earth, and were given power like that of scorpions of the earth. They were told not to harm the grass of the earth or any plant or tree, but only those people who did not have the seal of God on their foreheads. They were not allowed to kill them, but only to torture them for 5 months. And the agony they suffered was like that of the sting of a scorpion when it strikes. The locusts looked like horses prepared for battle. On their heads they wore something like crowns of gold, and their faces resembled human faces. Their hair was like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. They had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the thundering of many horses and chariots rushing into battle. They had tails with stingers like scorpions, and in their tails they had power to torment people for 5 months."
Now, if you're wondering what these creatures look like, the book of Revelation gives us a detailed, terrifying description. These locusts are nothing like the grass-eating insects we know. They have the bodies of horses, the faces of humans, teeth like lions, and tails like scorpions, armed with stingers that can torment people for months. Imagine a creature that's part locust, part scorpion, and part human, with the sole purpose of inflicting pain and terror. These aren't your average locusts. They're weapons of divine judgment. So what do these terrifying creatures represent? In biblical prophecy, Locusts are often symbols of destruction, sweeping across the land and devouring everything in their path. But in Revelation, these locusts are more than just agents of destruction. They symbolize the torment and judgment that comes upon humanity during the end times. Their stings, like scorpions, bring not death but prolonged suffering. Their power is not to kill, but to torment, drawing a parallel to the spiritual and emotional suffering that will be experienced by those who do not carry the seal of God during the tribulation. For 5 months, these locusts are unleashed to bring agony to the unrepentant, a period of time that echoes ancient plagues, but with a twist. This is suffering without death, a prolonged reminder of divine judgment. Let's talk more about their appearance because, well, it's one for the books. These locusts are described as having human-like faces, flowing hair, crowns of gold, and the bodies of battle-ready horses. Their teeth, like lions. Their armor, iron breastplates, impervious to attack. And then, of course, there are the scorpion-like tails, ready to sting over and over again. It's not just their appearance that terrifies. It's their sound. The book of Revelation says the beating of their wings is like the thunder of chariots rushing into battle. The very presence of these creatures strikes fear before they even arrive. Medieval depictions often portrayed these locusts as nightmarish, demonic creatures, half human, half beast, with a singular goal: tormenting those who had rejected God's protection. The fear they inspired wasn't just physical, it was spiritual. Today, many theologians see these creatures as symbolic, representations of spiritual forces that will be unleashed during the end times. The locusts with scorpion tails serve as a warning of the chaos and suffering that comes when humanity turns away from God. Others interpret these creatures literally, believing that during the tribulation, we may witness such terrifying otherworldly beings as part of God's divine judgment. At number 3 on our list, we dive deep into the abyss to meet one of the most fearsome creatures described in the Bible, Leviathan. This massive, untamable sea monster is no myth, but a creature woven into Scripture itself. Prepare yourself for the terror of the deep. Leviathan is mentioned multiple times in the Bible, described as a mighty and terrifying sea serpent, a symbol of chaos and destruction. But who or what exactly is Leviathan? Let's start with one of the most detailed descriptions of Leviathan, found in the book of Job, chapter 41. God himself describes this creature, and it's not for the faint of heart.
Can you pull in Leviathan with a fish hook or tie down its tongue with a rope? Can you put a cord through its nose or pierce its jaw with a hook? Who dares open the doors of its mouth, ringed about with fearsome teeth? Its back has rows of shields tightly sealed together. Each is so close to the next that no air can pass between. Its snorting throws out flashes of light. Its eyes are like the rays of dawn. Flames stream from its mouth. Sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke pours from its nostrils as from a boiling pot over burning reeds. Its breath sets coals ablaze, and flames dart from its mouth. It makes the depths churn like a boiling cauldron, and stirs up the sea like a pot of ointment. Nothing on earth is its equal, a creature without fear.
Leviathan is no ordinary sea creature. This is a beast that breathes fire, churns the oceans with its movement, and is completely invincible. No man can tame or even hope to defeat it. The book of Job paints Leviathan as the embodiment of chaos, an untamable force of nature. Some scholars believe that Leviathan represents not just a physical creature, but the cosmic struggle between good and evil, order and chaos. In the ancient world, chaos was often personified by great sea monsters, and Leviathan stands as one of the most fearsome symbols of this destructive force. Leviathan isn't unique to the Bible. Many ancient cultures had their own sea monsters, from the Babylonian Tiamat to the Greek Hydra. But Leviathan stands out as a direct opponent to the order established by God. In fact, The Bible even hints that Leviathan's time will come to an end. In Isaiah chapter 27, verse 1, we get a glimpse of Leviathan's fate.
In that day, the Lord will punish with his sword, his fierce, great, and powerful sword, Leviathan the gliding serpent, Leviathan the coiling serpent. He will slay the monster of the sea.
Even the seemingly invincible creature will one day be defeated, representing the ultimate triumph of divine order over chaos. But what exactly does Leviathan look like? Well, the Bible gives us quite the description. This isn't your typical giant fish. Leviathan is often depicted as a massive sea serpent, with scales so tough that no weapon can pierce them, and teeth that could tear through ships. It's said to breathe fire and smoke, adding to its fearsome appearance. In the past, people believed Leviathan to be a very real and dangerous threat. For ancient sailors, the sea was a mysterious, often deadly place, and stories of great sea monsters like Leviathan fed into their fears. People believed Leviathan was a creature of chaos, lurking in the deep, waiting to strike. During medieval times, Leviathan was also associated with hell and the devil, often portrayed as a demonic sea monster who would devour souls. In this interpretation, Leviathan wasn't just a creature of the ocean. It was a symbol of evil and eternal damnation. Today, most people interpret Leviathan as a symbol of chaos, a representation of the forces that oppose God's divine order. However, some scholars believe that Leviathan may have been based on real creatures, like crocodiles or even extinct sea reptiles, whose fearsome characteristics were amplified in biblical texts. At number 2 on our list, we encounter the awe-inspiring cherubim, guardians of divine secrets, carriers of God's presence, and some of the most mysterious beings in all of Scripture. Forget the chubby little angels on greeting cards. These creatures are far more powerful and terrifying. The cherubim are mentioned throughout the Bible, often in the context of protecting the most sacred things, like the Garden of Eden, the throne of God, and the Ark of the Covenant. But their appearance? Well, it's not quite what you'd expect. Let's start with one of the most vivid descriptions of the cherubim, found in Ezekiel chapter 10. Here, Ezekiel has a vision of God's throne, and the cherubim are described as guardians of his glory.
Their entire bodies, including their backs, their hands, and their wings, were completely full of eyes, as were their 4 wheels. I heard the wheels being called the whirling wheels. Each of the cherubim had 4 faces. One face was that of a cherub, the second the face of a human being, the third the face of a lion, and the fourth the face of an eagle.
4 faces covered in eyes, with wings that shimmer and move like wheels. These beings are not your average angelic figures. The cherubim are described as multifaceted creatures, each aspect representing different elements of God's creation and power. Each face has its own significance. The human face symbolizes wisdom and reason. The lion face represents power and majesty. The eagle face stands for swiftness and vision, and the cherub face symbolizes heavenly knowledge. These creatures are both guardians and symbols of God's divine attributes. The cherubim also make their first appearance in the Bible, right after the fall of Adam and Eve, when God places them at the entrance to the Garden of Eden to guard the way to the tree of life.
After he drove the man out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden cherubim, and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life.
These powerful beings weren't just protectors. They were the ultimate gatekeepers, ensuring that humanity could not return to paradise after being cast out. In the Bible, cherubim are often associated with the presence of God. They are seen surrounding his throne, carrying his glory, and protecting what is most sacred. For example, the Ark of the Covenant, which housed the 10 Commandments, was topped with 2 golden cherubim, their wings outstretched to form a divine throne for God's presence. The cherubim serve as more than just heavenly messengers. They symbolize divine protection, the holiness of God's throne, and the inaccessibility of his presence to those who are not holy. In art and religious symbolism, cherubim often represent the barrier between heaven and earth, the divide between the holy and the profane. Their many eyes symbolize the all-seeing nature of God. Their wings symbolize their swift movement across the heavens, and their faces represent the diversity of creation under God's dominion. In the past, people believed cherubim to be the ultimate guardians of sacred places. In early Jewish and Christian traditions, they were often associated with the divine presence, especially in the context of the temple in Jerusalem, where golden statues of cherubim adorned the Holy of Holies. Throughout history, cherubim have been depicted as fearsome protectors, often shown surrounding God's throne or guarding holy relics. They were seen as beings who carried out God's will and kept humanity at a respectful distance from the divine. Today, cherubim are seen as symbols of God's holiness, power, and protection. Their unique form, combining human, animal, and divine features, reminds us that God's creation is vast and beyond our full understanding. Some theologians see them as representations of God's omnipresence, while others view them as literal heavenly beings who continue to serve as guardians of sacred places. And now we come to the final creature on our list, a creature so familiar to us that we rarely stop to marvel at its strangeness: humans. While we may not have wings like angels or the monstrous size of giants, humans are, in many ways, God's most extraordinary and puzzling creation. Humans are unique because we alone, out of all creation, were made in the image of God. This sets us apart, not just as a species, but as a divine reflection. Genesis chapter 1 states,
"Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground."
Being made in the image of God doesn't just refer to physical appearance. This speaks to something far deeper. It means we have been given the ability to reason, to create, to love, and perhaps most importantly, to make moral choices. No other creature in the Bible is described this way. But what makes humans even more fascinating is this strange paradox. We are both mortal and immortal. Before the fall, Adam and Eve were designed to live forever. It wasn't until they ate from the tree of knowledge that death entered the picture. Genesis chapter 2 states,
"But you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it you will certainly die."
From that moment on, humans became creatures who live with the knowledge of their mortality, yet also with a longing for eternity. The Bible tells us that we were never meant to experience death, but now it is part of our existence, making us, in a way, both eternal beings and temporary ones. Ecclesiastes 3:11 touches on this strange duality.
"He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end."
Another element that makes humans so unique is our role as rulers and creators on earth. Genesis chapter 1 verse 28 gives humanity dominion over all the earth, something no other creature is given. We are entrusted with the care and stewardship of the entire planet.
"Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground."
But it's not just our ability to rule that makes us special. It's our creativity. Humans, more than any other creature, are capable of imagining something that doesn't yet exist and bringing it to life. From art to technology, music to literature, we continuously reflect God's creative nature. One of the strangest and most fascinating aspects of humanity is our capacity for both good and evil. Unlike animals, who follow their instincts, humans are moral creatures. We can choose to do incredible acts of love and selflessness, or we can cause great harm. This moral choice is another aspect of what it means to be made in God's image. No other creature has been given this kind of responsibility. It is both our greatest gift and our greatest burden. From a physical perspective, humans are fragile. We're not the strongest, fastest, or most durable creatures on Earth, and yet, despite our physical limitations, we have immense power. We shape the world around us, harnessing nature's forces and bending them to our will. When we look at ourselves through the lens of Scripture, we see just how strange and remarkable we are. We are the only beings with a divine image, the only creatures given dominion over the earth, and the only ones who wrestle with both our mortality and the longing for eternity. Humans, fragile, creative, moral, and eternal, are perhaps the strangest of all God's creations. We are beings who can both reflect God's glory and yet fall into sin. We are capable of creating beauty beyond measure, yet we struggle with our limitations. No other creature carries this complex mix of dust and divinity, and that is why we, humans, are the final and most mysterious creature on our list, strange, wondrous, and beloved by God. So let's be honest, if you were not a human, wouldn't you think that humans are strange beings, aliens like Eve? Hopefully, you were able to learn something new. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.